Welcome back to this special edition of Bet Racing Nation with Julie Williams. Julie, we're just going to run through a few fun questions, a bit like liken this to the Q&A that they have in the Racing Post every Sunday.
Oh goodness!
So we're just going to fire a few questions at you.
Okay.
Your best day on a race course ever?
Best day ever on a race course. Jeez. Do you know what? Any with my dad at the festival. Any of them, they were just all phenomenal. Not linked in with any particular race, just linked in with the absolute buzz. Yeah. Didn't know what was coming next, and just the kind of mania that sometimes came with that.
Mania, isn't it?
And it is, yeah. So any of those days, I would happily take any of them again.
I was going to say, I'm pretty sure that I know the worst.
Well, yeah, just, we obviously in 2006 on the Thursday of the festival, we didn't have a good day on or off course that day. And, I don't think there are many that could come much worse than that.
No, absolutely not, no. Your favourite horse?
Oh, my favourite horse, probably Brave Inca. I just remember we followed it, from.
That was that festival.
Yeah, that was that festival as well. It's like it's typical because I think that was the opening day, wasn't it?
Yes.
And I remember we were all in such a high. We'd followed it at huge prices, from very early in the season, and we'd bet it and bet it and bet it, and so we obviously had the high of that on opening day to the absolute lows on the Thursday. But the thing about this game, Cathryn, is you should never get too high and you should never get too low.
It's a great level of this game,
You've got to try and find a balance, and stay there, really.
Which is hard.
It's not easy.
When you're sort of, in a game like ours, when you're carried along on that emotional torrent of
Absolutely.
like up and down.
Totally.
It's great strength of character to stay level, and of course that's what your dad was fantastic at.
Oh, he was amazing at it. And I think the other thing is when you hit, you can turn up and you can lose for one day and then you go back and you win the next. And it goes up and down like that. But then sometimes, as I'm sure we all know, whether you're a punter or a bookie, you then go through a phase of losing and losing and losing again. And it becomes like Groundhog Day. And you eventually, you lose your confidence as well. And the more you lose your confidence, the more you're going to not win. They seem to go definitely hand in hand. And I think it's in those moments that you've got to try and go back and say, statistically, this is how this card has worked. We just happen to be in, or go back and see whether there's a flaw in how you're operating. But the one thing for me is, in this job, no one is going to tell you that you are rubbish. So what do? Do you wait until you've got zero left in your bank, before you go, well, I wasn't very good at that, was I? So it's always about trying to take a check as well and actually say to yourself, am I capable of doing this job? Am I doing this job well? Am I doing this job right? And hopefully I'll never see that zero figure.
No, you won't. Your favourite track?
Favourite track, Cheltenham, without a shadow of a doubt. But to put it into perspective, it's unfair to compare other tracks against Cheltenham. You really, really can't. So there's a lot of tracks in Scotland really work hard. I think Musselburgh work particularly hard. Perth's a beautiful track for a day out.
Never been there. I want to go.
Oh, it's like a little country track, Cathryn. And for people who are southern based, if you want to go for a day out up in Scotland, you're going to get great jockeys because it's jumps. You very often have Tony McCoy. You've got Jason Maguire. You're going to get some okay racing, but what you will get is a fantastic day out.
Oh, I will get there, I promise. Yeah. The funniest thing to ever happen to you on a racecourse? Oh,
without a doubt. Just after my dad died, Tony McCoy had asked to speak to me. And I call them Dad's Army. They're the older men who look after, the entrances and so on at the racetracks. And one of Dad's Army had come round and said, you have to follow me. Mr. McCoy wants to speak to you. So I followed and I followed. And I should have engaged my brain probably, Cathryn, but I didn't. I just did what I was told. Yeah. So I followed him right into the jockey's weighing room, and there's all these jockeys running about starkers that by the time AP came out to actually say, I'm really sorry about your dad, I couldn't look him in the eye. I was like, oh, just get me out of here. My face was really red.
Did you blush?
I was blushing badly, definitely blushing badly.
What do you think the best thing about this great game is?
Oh, what's not to love about it? You know, if you were to say, you know, you action pack everything into 3 or 4 hours on the great days. Everything about it is amazing, but obviously the best days are the ones where you've got the top quality horses going. You can't compete with that, you know, and you know that you're going to see some amazing racing, and that you know there's going to be people there who care as passionately about what's going on out there as you do, and you're sharing that with 60,000 people. The roar, obviously, as the first race goes off. Everyone talks about it, but when you're standing, it feels like what I can only imagine it feels like for football players running out into the middle of the pitch, because you're standing in front of this huge stand and there's just this absolute roar, and you know, it doesn't matter how many times you hear it, you get tingles down the back of your spine. Do you get that as well?
And that will never go away for me.
No.
In fact, like before I worked in it, I would, the days when I was just a race girl, I would actually go out and stand in the middle of the track, because the roar would actually carry over to there, and because of the kind of the way the hill is, it would actually echo back. So you'd almost get the roar, and then you'd get the riptide of the roar.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, I was just about to say, if you ever get the chance, of course you're never going to get the
chance. Stop working.
But when you do get the chance, I would sort of say to anyone, if you can get out into the middle of the course at Cheltenham, go and just to experience the riptide of the roar.
Because it's just such a natural amphitheatre, isn't it? Just, you know, someone had great vision when they flew over that and said, that's where we're going to build a racetrack.
It was originally on top of the hill.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was originally, you know where the pylons are on Cleve Hill?
Yeah.
That was the original site of Cheltenham Racecourse.
Wow.
But the Dean Francis Close burnt the stand down. He said that gambling was devil's work.
Oh, really?
And so I can't remember the whole history. I should do, really, and that's how it sort of came to be there. So it's almost, really, he kind of almost did them a favour.
Do you know, just leading on from that, this is totally quite a random thing to tell you about, but I didn't know till recently that the roulette is called the devil's game, because if you add up all the numbers, it comes to 666.
I never knew that.
There we are. That's my fact of the day.
And that's the only casino game that I will actually play.
That's the only one you play.
I don't know.
What does that say, Cathryn?
What does that say about me?
There's a bit of a devil in you there, is there?
After such a light-hearted conversation, I almost don't want to ask this, but what would you say the worst thing about this game is?
I think the hardest days are the ones where you're standing, it's an off meet, it's cold, and I talk a lot about the weather because it plays it's got such an impact on
I look at you sometimes and think, I'm in here holding a cup of tea. Wow, I feel so
If somebody said to you, go and stand at the bottom of the garden for 4 hours and don't move from that spot, you'd be like, oh, don't be so silly.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing is that you have to keep concentrating, because those are the moments that you make mistakes. And I think that that's the thing I find hardest out of everything, is, you know, standing, trying to make sure that I've still got my wits about me, when in fact there's no one even anywhere around. And a very wise man once said to me, you know, what you've got to do is you've got to be fit. You've got to make sure that you're fit, both physically and mentally. And you know what I do is, though I'm very naughty, what I tend to do is, like, I go, oh, it's January, I better start running so I'm ready for the festival. So every year come January, but I have started early this year, so I started last month, so hopefully I'm a month or two ahead of the game for this year's festival.
You do need to be in shape for the festival, though, don't you?
Totally.
It absolutely takes every inch of strength that you have.
Yeah, we'll be up, you know, between 3 and 4 in the morning, depending on whether Channel 4 are kind enough to invite me on. You know, we'll be shooting off to Cheltenham at maybe 6, you know, there to do some filming. And then you're doing cards in between times, trying to find quiet spots in order to just review things. then you're on your feet all day, then you're home, you're reviewing what's happened, you're reviewing what's going to happen the next day, you're in bed.
Yeah.
I'm useless. You're in bed early, let's just say, and you're back up again to do it all again, and that goes on for 4 or 5 days, and by the end you are just exhausted. There's no doubt about it.
I mean, the biggest myth is that everybody who works in the industry goes out and enjoys it. Nobody does that because you're so knackered.
When you're young, I think I see the 25-year-olds like kind of stoating in who work for bookmakers, and you think you've obviously had quite a nice night. But I think as you obviously get a little older and your body doesn't quite allow you, to recover as quickly, you definitely don't want to be going to Cheltenham with a. And you also don't, the other important thing is you don't want any excuses. So if you go and you've made a mistake, you've got it wrong, the last thing you want to be doing is saying, oh, that's because I went out last night and had a glass of wine. You just can't afford to do that at Cheltenham. And there is no excuses. If you make a mistake, you've made it on, your own silly judgment. And you need to take that on board and not have, an extra excuse.
We won't see you swinging from the chandeliers in the Queen's.
No, damn.
Yeah, no, I'm in bed early festival week as well. Julie, last question for this section. If you were in charge of the BHA for the day, what would you do? What would you change?
Oh my goodness, if I was in charge of the BHA for the day. I've never thought about that, Cathryn. You have totally stumped me. I don't have a huge opinion on that one.
That's all right. That's okay. I did.
Let me think. I'll have an answer in a week's time, though. I can guarantee you I will know exactly if I will tweet.
Julie, I've just got a few tweeters' questions. Now, I did kind of spring this on them this morning. I just thought it might make a sort of fun additional little end to the interview here. One from our very own Sportsmad Sam. He's at Sporting Sam Can on Twitter.
Oh, hi Sam.
He says, what is your preferred type of race to lay bets in?
Do you know what? It's not a particular type of race, but what I want to try and find is a race where I really don't like the favourite, and it doesn't matter for me whether that's a handicap, a hurdle, really that side of things isn't important. It's finding that there's gaps in a horse's form that becomes really, because then I can go on and I know I can lay something that the public are going to want to bet, and then as I say, it's then back to who's got that right.
Excellent. And one from Andrew Chalmers at Andrew Chalmers 1. What does Julie think of all 4G and Wi-Fi being blocked on all racetracks?
I think it's really interesting. I think at the moment, as a bookmaker, you might say naturally that might encourage people to come and bet with us if they can't actually bet via their mobile phones. I think that's a bit short-sighted, and I think the technology will move so far that won't necessarily be an advantage to on-course bookmakers. I also worry that it may stop people coming, and people may say, well, I'm not willing to walk through a gate where I don't have a bit of freedom of choice of what I'm going to, where I'm going to bet and how I'm going to bet and what I'm going to use. So whilst the easy answer is to say, oh well, that must be better for us. I think it's a bit more complex, a bit more complicated than that, and I think that some careful consideration really needs to go into what the impact of doing such things will be.
It's hard, isn't it, because obviously the way social media has evolved, and if you look at the data traffic to Facebook and Twitter, people like to tell people where they are. People like to do a selfie and tag themselves at a venue.
Do you like doing selfies, Cathryn?
I might be guilty of doing selfies. With friends, not just
not just on not just the pout. No.
No.
You don't do the pout selfie, no.
I wouldn't be in for the selfie pout, but I am guilty of doing selfies with friends. And and it's the thing, it's the whole culture now, isn't it? Oh, let's put it on Facebook, let's tag ourselves. And how many people, you only have to go on Facebook, say something like the festival, how many people have tagged themselves at Cheltenham.
Yes.
And of course on Twitter people want to take a picture of the course or take a picture of a certain horse, or take a picture of them and their friends messing around. Look where I am. It is such a hard thing to know, where do you draw the line? Do you allow traffic to certain sites but block the betting sites? But then if you do that could be quite a hard job, because obviously you need to have a Wi-Fi line going in for media and for you guys. And you can't block access to that kind of traffic.
No. I think it's a really complex issue.
It is.
I don't think it's one that we're going to resolve overnight, but I think as a bookmaker in the ring, I'd be very foolish to ignore the potential impact that whatever decision is made may have on us.
Excellent. Okay, and the last question to close the interview is from me.
Okay.
Flat or jumps?
Jumps. Jumps. Even though it's freezing, even though all I've done is moan about the weather, it's jumps all the way for me, Cathryn. What about you?
Jumping in the heart.
Yeah.
But I am dual purpose. I do like the flat. I do follow the flat. But of course, look, being from Cheltenham, it has to be jumps, doesn't it? the winter game is something special. And
you get more value for money. It goes on for longer, you know. So at least for your £2-3 or whatever you're betting, you can get a bit more of a run for your money from it.
It's the whole. You feel like a family coming back.
Yes.
And it's the whole. You only have to look at if a horse unfortunately takes a heavy fall, but the horse gets up. The roar from the crowd when I remember being in the stands when our Vic fell heavily at Cheltenham, and the roar he got from that.
When he got up.
And do you remember when Spot the Difference went actually fell over after winning the cross country chase?
Yeah.
And the roar that he got for getting up from that I just feel that National Hunt, you take it to your heart a little bit more.
I think so, and I think the other beauty of Hunt is that obviously people can follow a horse year in, year out, and you don't get the same opportunities to do that in the flat. So in families there'll be horses that almost become part of the family. Absolutely. Because they'll be followed so closely by the people sitting at the breakfast table, and they'll create such joy and pleasure for people over the years. No, I think it's a very lovely fraternity.
It is.
The jump racing people, it's great.
I'm going to make that my penultimate question, because you just inspired another one there. You said Brave Inca was your favourite horse of all time. Yeah. Who's your favourite horse now?
Who's my favourite horse? Well, I'm going to have to say it's my husband's that he's got a share in. He's got a share in a horse called Netminder, along with his friend Dave from Ireland, and Kona and Sandy Thompson train it, and they also have shares in it. And this horse beat John Spirit, up at Ayr at the Grand National Meet. Got potential. Doesn't always show it, and occasionally breaks your heart, but we'd certainly be home. We'd certainly be hoping for good things from it. So for the moment, I'm very biased, and and that's my horse of choice.
Okay, I'll make that my third last question. as we're running along here, this will be the last question. We just touched there on John Spirit. Yeah. Obviously, he's going to follow up. He's going to try and follow up in the December Gold Cup. Yeah. Can you see him going in again, or have you had any chance to look at the race again? I've
not had a huge chance to look at it, Cathryn, and I do tend to be a bit lastminute.com, so I do tend to try and keep my brain as fresh and look at each race as it comes up, rather than following too closely every single thing, so that when I go to the analysis, and I do it differently from you, I know you do it differently to that, but when I go to analysis, what is in front of me on that morning that it says in figures and facts is what I work with. But I think John Spirit's got an interesting story for me, because when it won at Cheltenham, not the meet there, the meet before, Showcase. And I did a little interview with Niall Hannity. So Niall's like, "Go on, Julie, give us a charity vet, give us a charity vet." And I said, what do you want it on? And he says, John Spirit. So at the time, I think it was 10-1. So I said, okay, you've got a charity bet, 10-1. But there was something about his insistence. So I went down to the ring and didn't lay it. And I was, thank goodness for that. Thank goodness for Niall Hannity. So we had to, you know, we paid out the cheque to the Injured Jockeys Fund, which would have otherwise been paid out to the crowd. So I now keep a close eye on John Spirit.
Yes, do, definitely. Julie, thanks so much for joining us here today. It's been an absolute pleasure having you in the studio. I really appreciate your trip down from Scotland.
It's been so kind. Really appreciated it, Cathryn, and it's always lovely seeing you. So a double bonus.
Same for me, same for me. Thanks for watching, everybody, and Bet Racing Nation will be back on your screen shortly.